And are you willing, as the business community and business leaders in this state, if you believe that those are worthy goals, are you willing to step up and support those efforts? That's what happened in 1989 when the Chamber of Commerce and the leading business, AIK and the leading business groups in this state came together with, the reformers, the Pritchard Committee folks, the Kentucky Education Association. All these groups came together, and they had been so diverse for so many years, but this was something they can agree upon. So I would challenge all of us, including the president, including the governor, that we ought to sit down and engage in a real discussion, recognizing what the problems are, but let's say where we want to go to, and then see if we've got the courage to get there.
Yeah, I would submit to you that the tax increases that we did in 1990 were one of the worst mistakes that were ever made in the state of Kentucky. The very people that convinced us that they would expand their jobs and that they would grow their industries voted with their feet. And the revenues never came because they left.
That's true.
So that is a failed model to bring people together to try to convince them that they ought to raise taxes to fund things that will make things better. The model that works is to grow our unemployment rate, to reduce our unemployment rate, to grow our jobs, and to get down to a 3 or 4% unemployment rate by the fact that we're the best place. Now, when you have a tax structure that is as bad as our tax structure is compared to other places, you're going to get a big lift real quickly if you change it. And that's the reason in the last session of the General Assembly, we passed through the Kentucky State Senate a tax commission bill that would have redrawn the tax system in the state of Kentucky from top to bottom with economic and tax experts from the universities and someone from the PBAs, and let all the stakeholders come in there and talk about what sort of tax structure would create the situation where we would be the best place in the United States of America to do jobs. And if you do that and create those jobs, the other things will come. And I'm confident that we can do that. My friend Art Laffer, who is the founder of the Laffer Curve, and I talked to him today. He talked to me on the phone. He spoke to a group down at Dale Hollow State Park, which was a Lincoln Reagan rally. And he spoke there, and I didn't know whether he was going to get out of there in good stead or not, because he starts off talking to all of us and referring to us as you people, which is not a good way to refer to most people, not even you people. And he says, you people have to understand, if you don't understand the complex theories that I'm going to talk to you about, you got to understand that I graduated from Yale, and I was on the faculty at the University of Chicago, and I went to Stanford, and so I talk in very technical sort of ways. So if you people don't understand what I say, raise your hands. Well, I could see my people weren't liking this very much. And who was this guy? He says, now I was located out in California, and the taxes were up here. And I looked over to Tennessee, and the taxes were down here. So I moved my company and all my employees from California, where the taxes were up here, to Tennessee, where the taxes were up here. Now, do you people understand that? And of course, immediately they understood it. He says, the reason that I'm asking you whether you understand that or not is because evidently this evades most people in the state capitals around the country, is that people will migrate jobs where they have the best environment and where they get the best return on their investment, and poor people don't hire anybody. Now, Ohio just completely did away and changed their inheritance and estate tax. So how many people leave Kentucky now because of our tax laws and want to be residents of Florida and don't want to die, but if they do die, they want to die in Florida, or at least have their bodies dragged across the line for 6 months so they might declare residency there. We have to think outside of the box and what makes people want to stay someplace, and the profit motive and job creation is where people go right now. Very few people have the sense of place and attachment, Speaker, that you and I have to our hometowns right now. They'll go anywhere that's necessary. And recently in a conversation in Louisville, where the conversation was among 8 or 10 Republicans discussing whether they liked David Williams or not, they didn't. And and one guy asked him, well, you hear what David has to say about changing this state and making it a better place for opportunity. Where are your kids located? And in that crowd, none of the children of those folks were located in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And they said, why aren't they located here? And they said, because there are better opportunities for here. They can live in Tennessee and they can live in other places, and there are better opportunities. We have to be an opportunity state. And we can educate all the people that we want to. And I'm for that. I've fought my entire life and made, I think, some of the riskiest political votes that anybody has ever made. But the bottom line is you can educate them and they'll move someplace else. And you can't import people to take their place if we are not an opportunity society where people can create and retain jobs here. And that's the bottom line of it. Until we change that, we're not going to have enough money to do that. And we need to step up and address these issues that we have about our unfunded liability, our unemployment insurance, our tax structure, so people will want to buy into our state and stay here and create jobs. And if we don't do that, we're going to meet every year saying, woe is we. We're a high unemployment state. We have poverty. Poverty breeds poverty, and you cannot break out of poverty unless you have jobs. And you won't have jobs anywhere unless you do something about the structure that we have.
There certainly in the last, and good, we have a volunteer, if you would make your way to the mic, enough information, interesting comments, background research, facts and figures to spur some questions from the audience. Please, we've got some time. I know they would enjoy, I think they would enjoy hearing from you, whether it's questions or comments. So please go right ahead.
Well, thank you both for being here. I would submit to you first, it's not all that complicated. We're not reinventing the wheel here. If you want to see a system that works, go 1.5 miles north of where you're sitting in the state of Indiana, where they're doing some neat things. We're a manufacturer. We're based in Louisville. We have plants in Jefferson County. We have plants in Ohio. We have a plant in Indiana. And I will tell you, from my standpoint, from our company's standpoint, Indiana is a decidedly more business-friendly environment. If I had it to do all over again, I would put my plant from the Jefferson River Port, we located there just a decade ago, that would be in Indiana right now, knowing what I know now. My question is, why can't we learn from them? They're doing some awesome things in education. Why can't we even do a simple thing like charter schools in Kentucky?
Well, we can do charter schools. And we did do charter schools in the Kentucky State Senate. But the Jefferson County Teachers Association and the KEA has so much influence in the Kentucky House of Representatives that we cannot pass a charter school bill, or we can't pass a neighborhood school bill, or we can't do other things that other states are doing. Even Arnie Duncan, Secretary Arnie Duncan is in favor of some of the outside-of-the-box sort of things. The most devastating thing that's going to happen to economic development in Kentucky is the Jefferson County public school system having 60% of the worst schools in the state. And the figures earlier about the failed educational opportunity for children of poverty, no matter what color they are, but children of poverty here in the Jefferson County school system. If you don't think there's a problem here, you go to the surrounding counties here. You go to the growth in Oldham County. You go to the growth in Meade County. You go to the growth in any county that touches here, and everyone that can evade the Jefferson County public school system is left. You go to the public schools, the private schools, Trinity, St. X, and other schools, those folks are blossoming and blooming. And I've come to the conclusion that we can't even do things like the Advanced Kentucky. You saw the Advanced Kentucky project in one of the lists. We don't do Advanced Kentucky projects in Jefferson County because the Jefferson County Teachers Association is against differentiated pay. And we can't take the best and brightest teachers into the worst identified schools because we can't do differentiated pay. And because the collective bargaining agreement won't allow us to do that, we have a school board that is dysfunctional here, that's under the control of the teachers union, and will never change unless people stand up. And I've even submitted that it might be time to dissolve the Jefferson County School Board and put the Jefferson County school system under the control of the metro government and allow the mayor of this city to appoint the school superintendent subject to the ratification of the local metro council, which will not be subject to the control of the teachers union here in this county. And that's one of the major economic development threats that we have here in the entire state, is right here in this county. And it's not that we don't have great teachers, but how can you continue to allocate resources and moving kids around and leaving the majority of them in failed schools that aren't getting the math skills and science skills necessary? And if you say anything about it, you're identified it. The Courier-Journal, I hope some of their reporters are here, referred to me, inferred that I was a Nazi or a racist because I wanted to do something about the problem like that, which is some of the nicer things that they have had to say about me over the last several years. But it is not acceptable to allow that. And those are sort of the changes. And those are the workers of the future. And people won't want to locate. I don't know what other kind of problems that you have here, but I will tell you, as far as the manufacturer is concerned, the unemployment insurance, the workers' comp situation, all those things go right down the line. And everybody in America has got a spreadsheet. And your health insurance costs more here in Kentucky than it does in California. All those things are factors that make people... I'm sorry to hear you say that. It breaks my heart, but it ought to concern everybody in here, because we're treading water, and if you tread water long enough, you'll ultimately drown. And we're in a drowning situation that needs change in this state, because we have to make things. Everybody can't be involved. We have to manufacture things still. We can't all be in the service industry, as important as it is. We have to make things. And people are going to other states. My father-in-law's company operates in a lot of states, and we are one of the worst states to operate in. It's the culture of our government that makes it that way.
Mr. Speaker, do you remember the question?
Well, yeah, I do, and I don't. I don't think it's as bad. I mean, if we look at these independent studies that have been done about Kentucky's business climate, we rank pretty high. We rank pretty good overall compared to where we are at the education level. There's nothing in Kentucky's law that prohibits the establishment of charter schools. We call them different things in other parts of the state. We call them alternative schools and some other things. Now, I don't know what the contract is here in Jefferson County, because they do have a contract with the school system, and there may be a prohibition that I'm unaware of. But in the other parts of Kentucky, if the Floyd County Board of Education wanted to have a charter school, it could have a charter school. There's no prohibition in the law that prohibits that.
Well, they would still be subject, Mr. Speaker, with all due respect. They could not set up a charter school and be free from the requirements of the Kentucky Board of Education and some of the reporting and testing sort of things that we put people through. They still have to would comply with that. The largest problem that we have here is education, in my opinion, but it is a targeted education problem. A lot of people here that can afford it and have the money, and that's the reason I'm a proponent of neighborhood schools. If you have an identified area with a defined boundary around it, and you're poor and you live in that area and your school does not provide for you, I would be in favor of a charter school going in there. And if it still is not provided for you, I would be in favor of giving you as a parent a voucher and allow you to take that voucher in that failed school and use it in another public school or go to a private school. Because just because you don't have the resources doesn't mean that you should be able, that you don't want the best for your child. That's a presumption that exists. And that's the reason I fought so hard to pass Senate Bill 1, to pass a test that gave more information to teachers and parents about where their kid was in a longitudinal sort of situation. And when you know that sort of information, you may presume that the people that work here at this hotel, and I'm going to tell you, I've had every kind of job in the world. I've been a dishwasher and a short order cook and a security guard and all those sort of things. And I've worked with a lot of people. Those folks that are in those jobs want as much or more for their kids as anybody else, and to presume that they won't take action when the school in their neighborhood is failing, and you need to empower that parent to do it. To presume that is the biggest insult that you can have against anyone. And that has to change, and until that changes, we're not going to have the sort of progress that we need.
You know, when we were talking about that issue, the former superintendent came to my office, and he said that in Jefferson County that they give you a choice of which school to send your children to. It's a preference, and that it's upwards of 90% of the people got to send their child to actually the first or second choice on whatever sort of form that they fill out.
Nothing would change if you had neighborhood schools. People would still have magnet schools and everything, except you would have a school proximate to you that you could go to and be involved. A lot of grandparents are raising these children, and if they're in poverty, they can't go all the way other side of town. They can't participate in after-school activities and other things. And if you look at a lot of blighted neighborhoods right now, they're blighted because the unity of that neighborhood has been challenged and defeated because there's not anything holding that neighborhood together like a school. You could still go anywhere you wanted to by admission, but every community and every parent ought to have one. If you buy a home in a community, you ought to have some certainty that your kid can go to that school. Why did you buy the house there? And until every child in this city and this state has an opportunity to get a good education, then the housing patterns, which are changing some, aren't going to change completely because they're going to be stuck in poverty if they don't have the skill level necessary to elevate themselves. That's a fact. That's a fact that nothing will change.
Another question or comment from the audience. This is a rare opportunity, ladies and gentlemen. Here's one. Excuse me.
President Williams, you mentioned that you want to make Kentucky the most attractive business state in the nation. What specifically would you do to accomplish that? I mean, that's a far ladder to climb, and I'm interested how you would achieve that.
Well, I thought I'd alluded to that, and I'll spell it out right now. I would change the tax structure in this state. I would make sure the tax structure makes our state the most advantageous place in the state to create and retain jobs. I would change the culture of state government with the administrative regulations. I would make sure that anyone that has a problem in the state of Kentucky does not have to go to Franklin Circuit Court, that they can go into their own circuit court so that you would have a level playing field. I would make sure that our labor laws are changed so that we can compete with other states for economic development situations. And I would get away from the structure of having incentives where you try to level the playing field temporarily by getting someone, and 10 years later they decide they've made the wrong choice because the incentives go away. I'd give a level playing field for everyone in the state, stand back, get government out of the way, and make sure that the marketplace makes a decision that you should not go with your hat in your hand to Frankfort, Kentucky to see if you can talk them out of an incentive over there because you have something that somebody wants to cut a ribbon for. And I would depoliticize the Economic Development Cabinet and build that wall up again and hire a national expert in economic development, not someone that's a political appointee. That's what I would do.
Will you please join me in thanking President Williams and Speaker Stumbo for their comments this afternoon?
Thank you.
Thank you, Brother.
Thank you.